Okay, first of all, Mahmoud bhai, I welcome you back on the show. How is it looking in Gaza after the signatures on the peace deal?
Well, there are a couple of ways to look at it. Number one, this time there are certain indications that things are more serious than previous times. On the other hand, there are worrying indications that might leave a gap and maneuverability that some of the mediators said Netanyahu doesn't really have at the moment, according to them, especially the Turkish delegations and the Turkish officials. But let me break it down as it is. First and foremost, Netanyahu wasn't really intending on going into this deal. There was clear pressure coming from the American administration, who not only tried to press on Israel this time, but also added Turkish participation to these negotiations, something that both Israel and the United States before actually had vetoed. They did not want Turkish participation because the Palestinian side, the Palestinian resistance, wanted their participation for certain guarantees and involvement, especially seeing as the Turkish side, they back the Palestinian resistance and they also have offices in Turkey and they are active regularly there. Now, in that sense, there was an agreement, and it came into effect now as of 12 noon occupied Jerusalem time today, the 10th of October. And that came after the agreement took place. That agreement included certain deals to be made, certain progresses on the ground in what appears to be an initial phase. So clearly there are more phases coming up because the negotiations are still ongoing. And by the way, there are still niggly points in the current agreement that I will reach in a second. However, in the general grand scheme of things, there has been an agreement for Israel to withdraw to an initial withdrawal line inside of the Gaza Strip, followed by two more withdrawals after there would be certain what's called an international stabilization force, clearly agreed upon with the Palestinian resistance. We're not entirely sure how the formula would work, how it would be. Certain reports said that Qatari, Turkish, and Egyptian forces will be there. Egypt will be in charge of training a new police force, but again, certain details haven't been confirmed because there are two versions being released here. And just today, we found out from the Israeli broadcasting that there had been an agreement signed with the Palestinian side, an agreement signed with the Israeli side. The reason, according to the Israeli side, is that they don't have agreements directly with Hamas, but with the mediators. And there might be certain discrepancies there because, according to the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, the agreement that the mediators had with Hamas does not include, for example, the disarmament part, which can be tricky moving to phase two. Now, the initial phase spoke about the initial withdrawal, immediate entry of aid and equipment to Gaza. We already saw Egypt, they already built certain areas to house refugees in. And also, aid is going into the Gaza Strip. There is no war going on, no fire, no nothing. But there is one key issue, which is still a problem, and it could explode the negotiations or this deal, which is the list. Now, that list is the prisoners list. The Palestinians have a list of 250 names of life imprisonment Palestinian prisoners, leaders of Palestinian political movements, and leading figures in the Palestinian resistance. Some of them Israel does not want to release, namely Ahmad Saadat, the Secretary General of the PFLP, Marwan Barghouti, who is an ex-leader in Fatah movement, and then had a splinter organization too. Abdullah al-Barghouti, who is a leader in Al-Qassam brigades in the West Bank, who is the successor of Yahya Ayyash, who carried out a lot of operations against Israel, and he has actually the longest sentence, over 6,000 years. Then Abbas al-Sayyid and Hassan Salama, both of them figures in the Palestinian resistance. Now, Nothing has been confirmed so far. Israel always had a veto against these names. The question is, will the Palestinian side have some sort of leniency with that, seeing as this is like the biggest opportunity to release them? The last time they asked for them was in 20, after the previous Israeli was kidnapped in 2006, but then in the deal in 2011, Israel still had a veto up until the last second. The question is, what will be the position of the Palestinian resistance? Will they say that there is no agreement with them and we won't go ahead? Or will they have some sort of leniency? Or will they say, for example, well, we will release all of the living prisoners of war apart from several names that they have to release those other names for? These are things that can break the deal. How will that be resolved? There are multiple options here. The mediators will play a role. Also, the level of momentum that's happening in these negotiations. So if the mediators will press and tell Israel, like, that's not going to happen, and you're going to have to release them, and speak with the American side as well, there might be an opportunity for them to be released. If not, then the Palestinian side will have to compromise to make the deal pass through, release 250 heavy sentence prisoners. That's, of course, alongside the 1,700, because in total there are going to be 2,050 released at this moment. Then, of course, you have the fact that in dealing with both the Israeli and the American administrations, you are talking about treacherous administrations who have no real integrity. They have backtracked from previous negotiations and deals. As a matter of fact, the Palestinian side accepted ceasefires that were later broken by Israel or not accepted by Israel, yet the American administration backed them on that. This time, well, there was a little bit something different here. Some reports said that the American president applied pressure on Israel in the form of, well, you either go into this deal or we leave you. So some reports are saying that, which is basically putting Benjamin Netanyahu on the spot. Israel doesn't exist without the United States. There was another official in the United States who remained anonymous who said that Israel doesn't exist without us. Israel will not exist without the United States. And I think that Netanyahu is clever enough to understand that. How genuine was that, or how not genuine that was, because we need to bear in mind the Trump administration has been losing credibility amongst the backers of what is called MAGA in the United States, and therefore he had to show some sort of firmness, maybe, or have these leaks. But judging by what's happening now, there is definitely something on the table. From Hamas's perspective, they declared this is the beginning of the end of the war. From an Israeli side, they are a little bit shady, but again, the Israeli army said this is the end of this current warfare, as they're calling it. And we did see Israeli machinery leave Gaza. So these are, of course, the things that you can say are, reflecting some sort of positivity and chances to success. But there are other elements that have or show a level of risk. So the next couple of days, we'll see how it goes, because according to that agreement, within 72 hours, Hamas should be releasing the prisoners of war alongside the resistance. We already know by now that not all of the bodies are going to be released, that's for sure. The question is, will they release all of the living prisoners of war with the sacrifice or the compromise in not releasing some of the leading figures in the Palestinian side? That's the big question. Another question you may ask, or other people may ask, well, why is the Palestinian side having this level of compromise at this early stage when the prisoners of war was the biggest card in their hands? And the answer to that, according to the progress that's happening on the ground, is the fact that the level of influence that these prisoners of war had started to reduce with time. Number one, the Israeli government showed no interest in releasing them for a very long time despite ongoing pressure. And they increased the genocide and barbarity against the Palestinian civilians. Also, they showed no intention of finishing the war. As a matter of fact, several key figures in the Israeli government said that we basically will have all of them killed if necessary. Some figures in the Israeli government, and that they're not the priority. As a matter of fact, Netanyahu himself said they're not the priority in the beginning. And with that, the Palestinian side viewed this as a last maneuvering situation where they still have some value. They're using the momentum of this pressure coming from the United States alongside the pressure globally against Israel and the position of the Arab mediators. We saw good positions from the Arab mediators, good work alongside, of course, the Turkish part as well. And they said, okay, we'll go into this deal and then we will basically pull the rug from underneath Benjamin Netanyahu because then he will have no excuse. The thing he can talk about later on is, oh, well, they weren't disarmed or this or that. All of these things can, of course, have counter arguments and counter excuses from multiple sides, especially if we talk about a certain international force agreed upon with the Palestinian side being in Gaza in the interim, although we already saw, by the way, the deployment of the internal forces in Gaza that belong to Hamas already to secure the streets where Israel withdrew from. And Netanyahu wouldn't have that much of a backing in relation to the continuation of the war. However, that's not to say that it's going to be the case. So we are in a situation where everyone needs to be very, very careful. It's very, very important to keep talking about the situation because it might explode at any moment. Of course, what we do want and hope and pray for is that it actually goes ahead without too many problems. But history has shown us that the Israeli side is a treacherous, deceiving side, backed by a treacherous, deceiving American administration. And that's why we need to be careful.
Brother Mahmood, there are still a lot of people around the world, including Pakistan, who are still uh, are not trusting Israel and criticizing what is happening right now. But as an argument, other side says that if the Palestinians are happy, you should be happy as well. How do you take this
This,
statement?
I think everyone who is doubtful has the right to be doubtful. On the other hand, there also needs to be a level of appreciation to the negotiating delegation and their reasoning too. Because first and foremost, no one has the right to tell the Palestinian people in Gaza what they should and shouldn't do. And they do need a relief. I mean, even if everything stops, they have months of recovery, if not years of recovery. Let's not underestimate the trauma of the genocide against the whole population, women, children, elderly, people who lost everything. This is a traumatic situation. And there's a very big demand for the Palestinian population to have it stopped, albeit not without uh, keeping their rights and not giving up their rights that no one has a right to give up. For example, selling Gaza, or telling people you can't fight the Israelis, or disarming, or all of these things. And so far, the Palestinians stuck to their guns from that position. No ethnic cleansing, that was clearly mentioned. No forced displacement. These were the ambitions of the Israelis. No elimination of Hamas. Yes, Hamas wouldn't be governing, but Hamas will keep its power. But wouldn't be it would be a technocratic national government that is agreed upon by the Palestinians. There would be consensus. So I think again the doubts are justified. I have my doubts. But on the other hand, we do have to appreciate the fact that any formula that has the potential to work is worth a try. That's why the Palestinian side went to a phased agreement before to try and make it work. because you, as a responsible person or responsible authority, you would need to try and reach a deal. Then we, of course, saw the treason from the Israeli side and the American side. Will this time be different? Only time will tell. Everyone needs to be cautious, everything needs to be monitored, but only time will tell if it lasts or if it doesn't last.
A last question. And the core reason why we reach out to you is to get as close as we can to the situation in Gaza, to get the finest facts. We jump over all the international media to come and talk to you. So we want a clear
Mm.
picture of how are the emotions on ground in Gaza.
The people are over the moon. The people are very happy. They're very relieved. Many videos and most videos of people celebrating, laughing, crying, happy that they're going back to the rubble in the north just because it's their home, for example, and very glad to see this end. And that's very telling. And that's one of the reasons that I think there should be an encouragement to make this work for them. Again, without compromising the rights that really no one has the right to compromise unless it's a national consensus. For example, no Palestinian side has the right to say no one has the right to return or things as such. The vibes are very positive. As a matter of fact, there have been significant developments in the past 72 hours with a lot of aid going in immediately, Egyptian heavy equipment going in. Egypt started to build approximately 8 to 10 camps to have temporary shelter for the refugees in the central province, the central part of Gaza to the north, which is very important. Israel indeed withdrew. As soon as it took effect at 12 o'clock, people started to go back and move back and forth from Al Rashid Street, an area that the Israeli army existed in. There will be no role of the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, international aid organizations, including the UN, which is also very important. It was a death trap, literally, this GHF. And they're very hopeful that this finishes. So the vibes are extremely positive from the Gaza Strip. And I think the people should be the main aim of everyone. Now, where people get things wrong is they start to tell you about, yeah, the lives are more important than everything. Therefore, every political move, on the other hand, is worth it to protect them. Because human life is more important than political positions, which is an extreme position towards giving up certain rights that has proven to be ineffective, by the way. Number one, because it doesn't prevent aggression, as we can see from the West Bank. Number two, because it doesn't view the overall picture. You have less cards in your hands, you have less PowerPoints in your hands, and you are basically handing in your fate to the mercy of a brutal enemy, which is a very misguided approach. And of course, some of them will say, you know, the people are suffering, and they will use the people suffering to do that. Whereas when you hear the people of Gaza, no, they will tell you that certain things we can't give up. And we'd give everything up, including our souls, not to give our rights away or, you know, sell our everything, our land and our future rights or whatever. Because if they had that approach, then Israel would find it much easier to expel them or even settle in Gaza again. Don't forget that these were the statements in Israel. So I think it's that there's a fine balance, you know, that we should kind of focus on, which is, of course, first and foremost, it's the priority of the people of Gaza, what they want to happen in the future. And they are brave and heroic people at the end of the day with unbelievable power and resilience. But also, you know, having these rights, it shouldn't come with the cost of a national defeat or national surrender, because national defeat and national surrender doesn't guarantee protection and doesn't guarantee your rights. And cannot stop another genocide being conducted against you.